What's going on, world of YouTube? This ain't new breed. Well, this video was called Food for Thought, and I want people to really sit down and assess what could happen while trying to get food because of something that's essential and the stuff hits the fan situation. So I'm going to go through the probability of what might happen and also go through some of the high points and the low points when trying to establish to get food, or while trying to, as the timeline goes on, being able to figure out what's going on. So bear with me on this one. Let's get it. First, we're going to have to deal with people who are going to be hitting stores. That's going to be the first thing. But if everything shuts down, then stores only carry 3 days worth of food generally. One day if they get looted pretty quickly. That generally won't happen for about 24, 48, even 72 hours. People are going to have to come to the conclusion that help isn't on the way. Then they'll take things into their own hands. It's just currently in the situation we have a rule of law. And most people won't go doing things until they believe that either A, it's a necessity, or B, there is no rule of law at that time and they can get away with it, such as going and stealing electronics, which would probably be the first things to go because people aren't going to be thinking about food, water, and or shelter at the time. But secondary will be the stores. People are going to go for the stores. They're going to try and get water. They're going to try and get food, anything they can. So I want to tell you to avoid the stores if possible. That is why we prep, so we don't have to go out in and put ourselves into such situations where we could possibly be hurt, harmed, or anything else can go on with a loved one. Now, after we deal with the situation with those who are taking food, you're going to have to deal with scavengers. And when I mean scavengers, I'm not talking about bottom feeders. I'm talking about people who are going to be looking to scavenge food. These are people who will go from house to house, place to place. It doesn't matter. They'll go in fast food restaurants, but this is the nature of the beast. You'll notice people who prepped versus who haven't prepped based off of how quickly they're going to try to get out and get things to sustain themselves. Now, I speak about this just due to the fact that there are going to be a lot of people who will do this. They're going to be waiting for assistance, possibly FEMA, anyone who's going to bring food. And if they don't get it, they're going to try and find a way to get it. So this is kind of the nature of the beast. Those people will be dangerous. Some of them may be armed, some of them may not. You're just going to have to deal with what comes and see what goes from there. But once again, prepping, getting your food storage, getting certain things that you like set back, and being able to understand that each time you prep and preparation keeps you from another day or another month, another week, whatever it could be, from going out there and having to deal with those situations. Now, after the scavenging, this is something else that we need to talk about because people are going to scavenge. And after that's all gone, people are going to go out to the wilderness. That is a whole nother situation that I want to get into. You're not going to magically turn into a hunter if you've never hunted before. If you think about it, probably about 90% of the people haven't hunted, and 75% of gun owners really don't know anything about their firearms, how to hunt, how to go out, how to field dress, how to do the whole 9 yards. So that is where you're going to run into some really bad situations. So it's not just you who's going to be out there hunting, and understand wildlife cannot sustain a population that we currently have for any period of time. People are going to basically kill and eat anything that they see moving. That's why we have hunting seasons. We have deer season. We have different seasons to allow things to replenish. In a world without rule of law and people who are looking for food, they're going to be running around trying to get whatever they possibly can. That is where the threat comes in. People who do not understand or have not established a way to get food or even understand how to get food when it comes to the wild. So look at it from a realistic standpoint. You have not 5 or 10 or 15. You will have thousands of people attempting to go after the same game that you are going after, whether it be deer, pheasant, quail, turkey, rabbit, It doesn't matter. You will not be the only one in those woods. There are going to be hundreds and possibly thousands of people out in the woods with you. Not to mention, deer can smell humans. So they'll be running, trying to get away. So with these people who are starving and or hungry, their senses are going to be heightened. They're going to be trying to catch the first meal that they can get. Unfortunately, most of those people aren't going to be looking around for what they're shooting at. They're going to hear a rustle in the brush and they're going to shoot it. And let's hope that it's not a human on the other end, due to the fact it could A, either unalive the person, or B, it could injure them. And if a person doesn't get first aid, that's where a problem comes in. They could bleed out. There's a lot of stuff that can go on. Not necessarily going to get into the darker portions of that, but just use your imagination. So now we're dealing with a bunch of people who are skittish, who have no idea what they're doing, and they're carrying firearms through the woods. The vast majority of people are possibly going to injure themselves and or someone else in their hunting party, or just a random person who's walking around trying to hunt. So this is the reality of things. Pathogens and diseases. This is another thing that most people don't know about. They don't know when they catch a fish, a deer with blue tongue, any pathogens or diseases that can be floating around within the wildlife that you're going to hunt. So not only are you dealing with people who are going to be hunting the same wildlife as you, you're going to have to deal with other things that come with hunting wildlife. Now, the diseases, you may run into it, you may not. Now, one thing you are going to run into is trying to figure out how to properly A, field dress, B, figure out what to keep and what not to keep. If you haven't watched videos on how to field dress and prepare whatever kill you have, then you're probably going to do something wrong. I can almost guess and bet on that. Secondly, know where your kill shots are on whatever you're hunting. But as a prepper, you may not even have to go out there in those times. So knowing where your kill shots are when you're hunting, just one, it's painless for the animal. Two, the animal running, having to track it, deal with all that unnecessary shit, it just makes your day tougher. Not only that, when the animal gets away from you, remember, I told you there's going to be a lot of people out there who are hunting the same game as you. So if they hear that bang, they're going to assume it's food. So being able to get to you or get to the food before you do, that makes a whole nother thing. So if you're dealing with starving people out in the woods, they won't hesitate to take your food. Either they're going to do it without force or by force. And hopefully you don't have to deal with that situation. Now, people who are going to be using crossbows and bow and arrow hunting, not everybody can just pick up and know how to do it. It does take some form of skill. You're going to have to, know how to do it. Not only that, you're going to have to be aware of other people out there. So there are people who are going to be following you around, seeing if you do make a kill. There are going to be people who may possibly track you in order to see what you have. This isn't just a BS scenario. This is in all actuality the reality of a situation without food. If you believe people are going to be civil, it's not going to happen. So not being able to blend in and a bunch of city slickers walking around out there with guns trying to shoot at the first thing they can see walking, that's going to end bad for a lot of people. Not just a lot of people, it's going to end bad for, a lot of stuff. The wildlife is going to dwindle down so fast and so drastically that it won't be able to sustain, and people are going to have to move and or migrate. Problem is, where do they migrate to? Now let's look into catching big game. Say for instance you hit a deer, you get something that's pretty big. How are you going to carry it back? How are you going to take that from point A to point B? You're going to have to field dress it on the spot, take what meat you can and leave what's there. The last thing you want is for people to see what you have and you trying to carry back a deer. And I'm just talking about dead SHTF, possibly EMP, no gas, something like that. This isn't going to be just a 1 or 2 day thing. This is going to be something that would progressively last for a while. Just so I give you that disclaimer. Now, dealing with that, how are you going to take a 250-pound buck and throw it over your shoulder and walk without drawing attention to yourself and either A, getting robbed for your food, or B, just overall catching a bullet or making a lot of noise? So there you put yourself in other amounts of danger, and there are other aspects of danger. So thinking about those situations, being able to carry your kill, keep your kill, and make it back to your location without it spoiling, especially if you're in a warm climate, say for instance down south, west coast, places like that where it's warmer, your kill is going to spoil. And if you're up north in the wintertime, you can preserve it, but then again, you're easy to track because you're in the snow. These are things that I think about, and I try to constantly run these scenarios through my mind because it helps me in the end and makes me realize that there are points in areas where I could slip up. Not saying I'm perfect, not saying I'm the perfect outdoorsman, but understanding there are going to be people who make massive amounts of mistakes just due to little slip-ups and little things that they're not even paying attention to. Now next up, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now this is another thing that many people aren't going to take into account. If you make fire and you cook your food, people are going to smell it. It's going to attract and draw people. That's again why you prep. You can get foods that aren't going to really smell up an area, canned SpaghettiOs, top ramen. It's not like you're cooking venison out in the open and then people are going to smell that campfire. Naturally, that's going to draw the attention of everyone around you because not only is it a heat source, not only is it food, it could possibly be water. And then you have to think about it from a standpoint of how many people want your shit. It's just that simple. So you can only hope that these people will be non-aggressive, but when people are starving, their kids are starving, their family's starving, all that non-aggressive shit goes out the window. People are going to do what they have to do in order to get it. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but I want you to sit back and think and really assess what would you do if you were in the same situation. I'm not saying you have to be a good or bad person. Starvation will make people do some crazy stuff. So you have to look at the size of your kill, how big you have, cooking your kill. And let's not even get into the amount of people who are probably going to injure and or hurt themselves trying to chop wood. Not everyone knows how to use an axe. Not everyone's bought an axe. No, not everyone knows how to use a splitting maul. There's certain people I wouldn't trust with a saw to save my fucking life. I'm just going to be honest there. So you have to think who even has the equipment to go ahead and cut everything down, get it done, split wood, and cook. Once again, you're not dealing with 1, 2, 3 people. When we watch these survival shows, we're watching survival shows where there's just a couple people out in the wild. We're talking about hundreds, maybe even thousands of people in the same general location trying to do the same thing you're doing. You are putting a giant target on your back. And I'm not saying eat raw meat or anything. Find you a spot where you could cook. The only thing that I want to say is, in those situations, and really just assess how many people want what you have and what they're willing to do to get what you've got. That in itself is just a terrifying thought to me. Once again, that is why we prep. I can't express that enough. Now, on the other side of that, you have to think about the amount of people who are going to be fleeing in the direction that you are fleeing. A lot of people up north, when I talk to them, say, oh, I'm going to a colder area. Warmer area, warmer climate. I'm getting out of the cold. Not I. I'm going to stay in the cold. Just due to the fact, lower survival rate, most people are going to be running from here. I'll get into another video about that later. But being able to catch, capture, keep your food, hunt, get your water, which it has to be clean water. You're going to have to think about how many people are actually going to get bad water, contaminated water, because all the sewage and everything that's here will be dumped into the rivers, the lakes, and the streams. It's just the nature of the beast. That's what they're going to have to do to keep it from backflowing into people's houses. We've seen it before in other different areas where something will flood, the sewage backs up, so the only thing they can do is kind of reverse the flow and push it back out to lakes and streams. So your best bet to get clean water is going to be ponds that are not fed by lakes and streams in small areas. With that contamination, you're going to be dealing with contamination of fish. So this is a whole nother situation that I don't believe many people are thinking about. You're going to go ahead and chuck it out there, catch some fish. There are ways to purge fish. Look that up, but you're going to be dealing with contaminants in the fish. depending on how long this goes or where you are, you could be near a chemical plant. So those chemicals are going to dump into the water. The sewage is going to dump into the water. There's a lot that is going to be there, and before it either washes down, flushes out, you're going to have to keep an eye on the water and see if you either see dead animals or anything else like that floating in there, or B, you're going to have to see if animals are drinking from that water source. Animals generally have a really good way of knowing and understanding if the water is good and or bad for them. So keep an eye out for the animals. They'll tell you what you can drink from if they're not completely hunted to extinction. Now, dealing with people who have property. And don't get me wrong, property is property in a world with rule of law. Most people fear persecution, they fear prison, so they're not going to do anything outside of that. There are people who are going to be doing some real wild and crazy shit. This is just known. So outside of what we know, because people look and they're like, oh, it's going to be like the purge. Not necessarily. More people are going to be looking for food and water more than they will be trying to do awkward crimes and, just breaking the random shit and et cetera, et cetera. Once people start to starve, all the extra goes out the window. So that's going to be the main concern, food and water. And if someone gets contaminated water, good luck, because they're probably going to shit themselves to death. Just being honest, hey, take it how you want to. Now, being able to understand and get like Sawyer minis or get a life straw, certain things like that, boil your water. But again, while boiling your water, where there's smoke, there's fire. You're going to have to make a fire in order to even do these essential things. I don't think people really understand how much you need fire and how much you will give yourself away in a shit hit the fan situation. So being able to have 30, 40, 50 cases of water, being able to have foods that you can heat up very, very easily, or foods that don't even need heated up. These things are of the utmost importance. And the only reason I say that is because you're going to be dealing with people that you've never seen, people that you don't want to deal with, and people that are going to be on the cusp of breaking. And when people get to that breaking point, a mind is a terrible thing to break. Mental disorders will show in full effect. You never know what the effect of, unless you'll be dealing with people who have lost loved ones, you'll be dealing with people who were trying to save loved ones, then being able to have medication, being able to have the things that you need in order to get through the day to help these people. This is another thing that you have to deal with. So once again, it's just food for thought. So I could make this video go a long time, not trying to, but I want people to really sit down and think about what they're going to be dealing with in a grid down, shit hit the fan situation. Because most people think that there's not going to be 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000 other people. Oh, I got a garden. Yes, you have a garden. How many people are going to want that food? Oh, you have this. How many people are going to want it? How many people are going to attempt to track it? How many people are going to be looking for that smoke or smell anything like that in order to get to it? So that in itself is a scary thing. I don't mean to scare people or put people off or make people think that, when shit hits the fan, oh, it's the end of the world. No, it's not. People will eventually learn to come together, and they will make communities, and they will begin to coexist with each other. But there's going to have to be food. There's going to have to be resources. Things won't have to necessarily be in scarcity. Now, on the next video, I'm going to do rule of law. And this is going to be a good one in my personal opinion. Now, there are two different types of worlds, one with a rule of law and one without. But even without, there will be a rule of law, whether it's going to be people who are going to be those who are in power, like your Negans, your governors, and these are just references from The Walking Dead. So, but again, just pay close attention to the stuff that I've said, and I wish y'all a great day. I'm not going to make this run too long because I normally will. But this is A New Breed signing out. And remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.